Welcome back to TacosandGeeks.com. Justin here, back with more video game reviews, and today we're going to be reviewing the survival horror game Tormented Souls. And now it's available on all the consoles, and this is reviewed on my Nintendo Switch Lite. So all the footage that you see here is from and recorded from my Nintendo Switch Lite. As always, we give you here a brief synopsis at the Tacos and Geeks, so here we go. Something evil lurks at Winter Lake. While investigating the disappearance of twin girls at Winter Lake, something terrible happens to Caroline Walker. Waking in the dead of night, naked and hooked up to some kind of outdated medical equipment in the bathroom, Caroline must fight for her life as she explores the halls of the abandoned mansion. And for those who are really into that old school survival horror type of aesthetics, fixed camera angles type of horror that we grew up with, such as Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Clock Tower 3, and just many, many others, Tormented Souls does a good job of giving you that atmospheric survival horror with the fixed camera angles. And I'm glad to really see that a lot of the creators and developers that grew up on this are bringing this back, because I truthfully did miss games like this. And I think this game, Tormented Souls, Song of Horror, definitely gives me that fix that I wanted from that fixed camera angle perspective. Now, horror, as I always say, is subjective. So when it comes to the scares, when it comes to the atmosphere, how does how does Tormented Souls hold up? I would have to say, when it comes to the horror elements of this, it does a pretty damn good job. Now, for me, I'm really kind of desensitized because I play and watch horror games all the time, and I watch Shudder like religiously. So jump scares and things are not really going to creep me out as someone who barely does horror. But for the most part, it does capture that old school spirit of the survival horror. There are things that you have to do, such as solving puzzles. There's a lot of backtracking to open up doors. There are a lot of puzzles, I should say. There's things like such as conserving your ammo, knowing when to run, knowing when to take down the enemy. It does all those things that you used to do back in the old school days of the horror games. So I really felt that the puzzles were very challenging. You gotta definitely read the notes, because the story is more immersive when you read the notes of what's actually happening into the mansion. So it's kind of a horror and also an investigation. But here's a little bit of the voice acting.
Oh, it's you. Don't you remember me? I'm the town priest. We met here in the chapel only a couple of days ago.
What? I'm sorry. I don't remember you. I certainly don't remember coming here before.
I see. Perhaps I'm mistaken. I'm old and get confused every now and again.
What is going on here, Father? Where is everybody?
Voice acting was probably my biggest complaint about this game. Now, and the reason why I say that is because there are certain moments in this game that happens to our main character, Caroline here, where she is going through some really horrific stuff. And the delivery of the scene is so monotone. It's so wooden. I hate to say that word when it comes to acting, but I'm not sure if it was the actress, which I highly doubt. Maybe it was just the voice direction given to give it that type of 90s, early 2000 voice acting cheese. Like I said, this is very inspired by the Silent Hills and the Resident Evils of the world. And maybe they wanted to give that type of performance, because there's scenes in here that things, just for an example, with the opening scene with Caroline with her eye, you can see that she's wearing a patch. Something happens with her eye, and her reaction is like, oh my gosh, who would do something like this? And as you saw from the clip with the actual priest, she is going through some actual hell. Like, she's meeting these monsters and she's having that reaction with the priest, like, what's going on? Like, I expected a little bit more sense of dread, a little bit more of that dread tone in the performances, and you don't really get that in the early stages of the game. It kind of takes you out of it, because you see a scene where you yourself as the player being tense, but then the voice acting is just like very like nonchalant about it. You're like, oh, okay, well, this happened. You're like, okay, well, if you're not in dread, why should I be? So that's probably my big rant, or probably my biggest takeaway when it comes to the voice acting. But when it comes to the music's really good, man. Especially in certain emotional beat parts, they really do capture the tone. when there's tense parts with the monsters, you really feel that sense of dread, that sense of intensity. I just wish the voice acting complemented it. Now, a little bit back to the gameplay, how the graphics look and aesthetics on the Switch Lite. As you can see here, the Switch Lite, it does graphically, you can tell it's definitely watered down compared to the PC, Steam, and PS4, PS3, excuse me, not PSP, PS3, PS4, Xbox counterparts. So it is a little bit watered down here compared to other versions that's out there, but it still looks gorgeous on my handheld. There's still that sense of atmospheric that you get here with the lighting, the way the sound is. Highly recommend this playing this with your headphones, either Bluetooth or just connect your wire to the headphones, because you're gonna get a really great, more immersive experience, especially playing on the couch or playing on the bed with the Switch Lite. But overall, I did enjoy Tormented Souls. I think it's a great addition, and it's a nice welcome back to these fixed camera angle horror games that we have been missing. I would definitely recommend this as a buy to pick it up. There are little minor hiccups from time to time, but for the most part, it is enjoyable. Definitely check this one out later days.